Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the weekly Chabura. This week's Parsha is Parshas Vayishlach. Like I always do, I'd like to thank Torah Anytime and Chazaq for all that they do for the Klal. Very special work. I would also like to dedicate this year to a very special Talmud of mine. Just 18 years old. His name is Rabbi Yosef Mansour. I was zocher to be with him this past week in Eretz Yisrael. We were looking at different yeshivos. And the chizuk I get from Yosef is really tremendous. I'm 56 years old, he's 18, yet he gives tremendous amount of chizuk with his love for Torah, his dedication to do avodas Hashem, and the battle that he always battles to make sure that his Rebbe is happy with him, his family is happy with him, and most of all that Kadosh Baruch Hu is happy with his avodah. Thank you, Rabbi Yosef, for everything that you do, and the chizuk that you give me and many others. So this week's parsha, we know, starts off with Yaakov Avinu leaving his father-in-law's house, Lavan, and he waited obviously till Yosef was born, because we know Chazal tell us that Beis Eisav Lakash, Beis Yaakov Le'esh, and Beis Yosef Lahava. That with the koach of Yosef, he knew he could overcome Eisav, even though Yosef was young. But the koach, the ruchnius, the spirituality that Yosef embodies was enough for him to be able to, he believed, to fight Eisav. He's on his way back, and Eisav finds out that Yaakov is coming. So he prepares 400 men, and what was his preparation? His preparation was to kill Yaakov. He was coming with anger. He waited for all this time that finally Yaakov is going to come into his territory, and he will kill Yaakov and his family. So what does Yaakov do? Yaakov, Chazal tell us, prepared himself. The Torah tells us prepared himself for three things, and one of the things he prepared himself was by sending gifts. And we learn from that yes, when you're dealing with the enemy, it is important to do a certain hishtadlut of sending gifts. A second thing, obviously, not which was more important, but a second thing was he prepared with tefillah, of course, which is the most important, and he also prepared for war. Now the question arises, why does he need the other two things, like preparing for war and gifts, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, and you daven to Hashem, and everything you daven for hopefully is in the skayim? So I do believe that there's a certain hishtadlut that Yaakov needed to do. But what does hishtadlut really do? What does it do? So I want to be masber that hishtadlut, what it does is, it creates a certain illusion for certain people. That you do hishtadlut, a person might think that it was your hishtadlut that caused it, not that it was HaKadosh Baruch Hu that did it. It wasn't your tefillah. It was your hishtadlut that caused the thing that happened to you that you wanted to happen. And therefore, some people will say, he's a good businessman, he's a good salesman, he's got money, he's got a good business head, and therefore he succeeds in his endeavors without realizing that in reality it's Hashem. So people will be challenged. People will be challenged in their emunah. Do you see that it's all coming from Hashem, or do you realize and think that it is coming from a different source? So therefore, that's what sometimes hishtadlut causes. It causes a person, not the person, the person himself too, bechira. He might think that it's his hishtadlut that did it. So Hashem wants a person to do hishtadlut, giving the gifts, sending, preparing for war, and you think you're a great general, you're Napoleon, you're such a great general, and that's why you overcame the war, and not realize that it was really your tefillah and closeness to Hashem. So therefore, a person has this bechira by sending the gifts and by preparing for war, two things that can actually take him away from realizing really what is the essence of why he was successful. So what does he do? So he tells a message to these three angels, that one of them, they kept sending gifts with these angels, and to Eisav, and he tells them, tell Eisav that I kept the Taryag mitzvahs, which in alone is a fascinating thing, because we know the Torah wasn't given till Har Sinai, and we know certain mitzvahs didn't take effect for Klal Yisrael till many years later. Yet, we know that Yaakov said he kept the Taryag mitzvahs. So like I said many times before, the Avos were on such a high level that they were capable of looking in the nature through their holiness and seeing the Taryag mitzvahs. They were able to understand that the world needs the 613 mitzvot. By looking at the world and the nature around them, they saw that the world is already built on the Torah. Like it says, Hashem istakel baraisa ubar alma, that Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world, which means that the world in itself had in it the Torah. And they were on such a high level, they were able to look at it even before it was given. So Yaakov was able, with his own understanding and holiness and Kedusha, he was able to learn the Taryag mitzvahs, even though only 3 of them were in his lifetime, actually. Only 3 were in his lifetime. Period Verivia, the first one, Bris Milah, the second one, and later on, Gid HaNasha. Didn't even happen yet. So Yaakov was actually only privy to 2 of the mitzvos at the time that he was learning the Taryag mitzvos. So what does Rashi tell us? Taryag mitzvah shamarti, because from the word garti, you change the letters, Rashi tells us, and it means Taryag. Now, the truth of the matter is, what is he impressing Eisav? Eisav couldn't care less. Eisav cares that he kept Taryag mitzvahs. What was he telling him? But we're not going to go into that now. Famous questions asked. What I want to discuss is that Rashi says, "V'lo lamadati mi ma'asav harayim," and I didn't learn from the evil ways of Lavan. You learned 613 mitzvahs. You were able to see in the nature, you were able to see the Torah and able to write it down by looking at the nature of the Hashem's world. Why would we think he would learn even from the evils of Lavan? You know what level Yaakov had to be on? We learn from here a valuable lesson Rashi is teaching us, that Yaakov was teaching, that I could be a big Talmud Chacham, I could be a big Ben Torah, but I could still have bad midos. I could still do bad things. It's called a manuvel b'shos ha'Torah. A person could be a manuvel b'shos ha'Torah. He can know all of Taryag. He could be on such a high madrega, but yet Yaakov Avinu still felt obligated to tell Eisav that I didn't learn from the bad actions of who? Of Lavan. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. Now I saw today in the morning, actually, right after davening, I saw Me'am Loyas that really blew me away. Really was unbelievable. Unbelievable thing I saw. And I love using the Me'am Loyas. It's actually my cheat safer, where I use it, I learn it a lot. And when people ask me questions, most of the questions I'm asked, I do find answers actually in the Me'am Loyas. I can, figure out things. Yes, that's the Sefer in English. It is a fantastic English, even in English, written very well. But it is my go-to. It's almost like my Sukkas David, which was a Sefer by my Rebbe, David Kviat, who many Rabbeim would use to prepare themselves for Shir, because he had all the raid. He knew all the Torah pretty much on every sugya, so people would use it without having to work hard. So I go to the Me'am Loyas today in the morning, and the Me'am Loyas says something that was very, like I said, it blew me away. And he said it on the Pasuk Daled, Vayira Yaakov Ma'od. Yaakov was terrified when he's going to encounter Eisav. He was terrified on the encounter that he was going to have with Eisav. And the Me'am Loyas says there was 2 reasons why Yaakov was fearful. Number 1, the question really arises. He kept Taryag mitzvahs. He is on a spiritual level. Even if he felt that maybe his level kontontim mikol hachasadim, that some of his credits were used up, or most of his credits. But Eisav is a Rasha. Eisav is a real Rasha. What is he scared of? Davens to Hashem, he's close to Hashem. What is he scared of? So the Me'am Loyas says, in the name of the Zohar, he says that Yaakov was scared of 2 things that Eisav had over him. And I will tell you the second thing the Me'am Loyas brings down, and then I'll tell you the first, because it's the first that I want to discuss. The second thing that Yaakov was fearful, that Eisav had over him, the Lashon is Yisron, he had something added over Yaakov, was the Kibbud Avim that he was able to do for the 20 years that Yaakov was away. And Eisav, even though he was a Rasha, had a certain amount of Kibbud Avim, and Yaakov felt that would maybe be enough to overtake the 11 other tribe members, the Shiftei Ka. Binyamin was born later, but the holiness of Yosef, the holiness of the Shvatim, the holiness of the Imahos, the holiness of Yaakov Avinu, yet he was still scared that the Kibbud Avim, or Kibbud Av even, only, of Eisav was enough. That's the second answer he gives. Now your question should be on that. Wasn't Yaakov also doing Kibbud Avim? His parents told him to go and find a wife, which he did. So he was also being Mekayim Kibbud Avim. But could be that because Eisav was constantly helping his father, being there at all times, maybe he felt that was a greater kibbud av. Maybe. Otherwise, Yaakov also was doing kibbud av and aim when he went to Haran and he got married and he raised a family. Okay. It was the first answer that just was really fascinating for me. The Zohar brings down that the first reason he brings down why Yaakov Avinu was scared that Eisav might have certain schutim that would overtake him was that Eisav was living the whole time in Eretz Yisrael, where Yaakov was living in Chutz La'aretz. Now this is fascinating if you think about it. I broke it down right after davening. Eisav was a Rasha in Eretz Yisrael. Chazal, Gemaras tell us that doing Aveira, sinning in Eretz Yisrael, is greater and more punishable than sinning in Chutz La'aretz. Because when you sin in Eretz Yisrael, Chazal, the Gemaras tell us, is sinning in the palace of the king. And when you sin in the palace of the king, it's worse. If you go to the White House, kaviyachol, and you act crazy over there, it's a lot worse than you acting crazy in Mount Avenue where I live, okay? So when you're acting crazy in the White House, and I'm not trying to put down Mount Avenue, but anyone that knows what I'm referring to will know what I'm referring to in Far Rockaway. So somebody that sins in the king's palace is worse. Eisav was a Rasha. He sinned all day and night in Eretz Yisrael, which is worse. Yaakov was in Chutz La'aretz, away from his family, yet he kept the Taryag mitzvos. Yet he was worried, the Zohar teaches us, that the schus of Eisav just being in Eretz HaKodesh was greater than even him doing mitzvos and keeping the Taryag mitzvos. Unbelievable. Think about it. It's unbelievable. Eisav was doing Aveira after Aveira in Eretz Yisrael. Worse. Yaakov was away from anything good, yet he kept the Taryag mitzvahs in Chutz La'aretz. Yes, the chutz of living physically in Eretz Yisrael might be greater and a bigger merit than everything that Yaakov did. I found that to be unbelievable. You see the koach and kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. Unbelievable. Now, let's go a little further in the psukim. It says here, Vayakam balayla, who that night he got up, he was preparing, and he sent gifts to Eisav. And the pasuk says, pasuk Chav Gimel, Perik Lamed Beis, Vayakam balayla, who he got up that night, a certain night, I guess it was the night before he was going to meet Eisav. Vayikach et shtei nashav, he took his two wives, v'shtei shevchaisav, and his two maidservants, v'esachad asa yolodav, and 11 of his children. So Rashi right away asks a popular question. I mean, anything Rashi says is popular. Rashi asks a question, thank you. Rashi asks, what about Dinah? Dinah was with them, so why does he only say he took 11 children? He really took 12. And there are also shitas that held that with every shevet, a twin was born, but that's a chazal. Rashi, I guess, didn't hold to that. Or the pasuk, I don't know how he learns it into the pasuk, but V'esachad asa yoladav, and Rashi Bavarns, where was Dinah? So Rashi says that Dinah was put in a box, and Yaakov hid her away from Eisav, because he knew that if Eisav would cast his eyes on Dinah, she wasn't married, he might want her because she was very beautiful and she was very personable, and Eisav would want to marry Dinah, take her for a wife. And Yaakov was worried that if he takes her for a wife, who wants to marry? I'm worried. Who wants his daughter to marry a Rasha like Eisav? Imagine somebody setting up his daughter with Adolf Hitler. Of course you're going to keep her away from him. What are you kidding me? Yet Chazal held that Yaakov was actually punished and Dinah was taken forcefully later on by Shechem because he hid her in a box when she could have, Rashi says, maybe machziro lemut of Eisav. She could have actually brought Eisav back to tshuva. But you don't take a gamble. The Gemara tells us many places that le'olam yisa ben adam bitay talmid chacham. A person should always try to attempt to marry his daughter off to a talmid chacham. Common sense. Who doesn't want to marry a talmid chacham? Which father doesn't want his son to marry a talmid chacham? I mean, today it's a little different, but in those days, Talmud Chacham was top of the line. Today it should be also Chas v'Shalom, of course. But I'm just saying, today sometimes people are married for money, but maybe because they're hoping that they'll be able to sit and learn more, their children. But the bottom line is, Yaakov was held responsible. Why? Because he hid Dinah away from Eisav, and who knows, maybe, far chance, but maybe she could have brought him back to tshuva. Now you could ask this question on Leah also, because Leah was crying all the time that she might have to marry Eisav one day. She's not punished for that. Maybe she could have changed to Eisav also. How come she's not punished? Not only that, because she cried, and she used to cry to Hashem, Hashem heard her cries, and she ended up marrying Yaakov also. Why wasn't she punished that she might be able to marry Eisav and change him? So the Bali Musar like to say, they say most of the Bali Musar that I saw, almost they all say the same thing, that it didn't bother Yaakov that he had to do it. Yaakov, even though his intentions was pure, and he could have been correct in his intention, but it didn't bother him that he had to do it. Now, how does that coincide with the actual, that she could have changed him? That's a good question. The bottom line was, the reason is she could have changed him. That's the real reason. But the Bali Musar say that, they like to say that he nailed the box shut hard, which means there was no emotion that he had to do it. Even in Klal Yisrael, when Beis Din has to punish someone, there should be an emotional feeling that you had to do it. You should have Rachmanis on a Jew that needs to get punished for what he did. He needs the cleansing, but not to be happy that you're punishing a Rasha. Like they always say, hate the sin, not the sinner. Hate the sin, not the sinner. Train yourself that you're not hating the person, but you're hating his actions, okay? So yet, we see that Yaakov was punished. Why? Because he didn't feel any feelings of bad that he had to do what he did. That's what the Bali Musar say. And I saw an unbelievable thing from a Gemara that one of the Bali Musar actually bring it down, that we know that Yehuda Hanasi suffered for 13 years the most painful sufferings in his stomach, called choili me'ayim. It was stomach, I don't want to say cancer, but it was something that the Gemara tells us is the worst suffering a person could have. Choili me'ayim, stomach problems to that level that for 13 years he would lay on a bed and he couldn't move, and he suffered, and they had to take layers off of him. And it was terrible suffering. Yehuda Hanasi. And Gemara tells us why was he punished with that punishment? Because one time, a baby calf that was about to be shechted felt that, they feel it. Hashem causes them to feel certain nature that they're going to be slaughtered. And it hid behind Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. And he looked at the calf, and he told the calf, he didn't say anything bad. He told the calf, go, this is what you were created for. And I saw a pshat on that really what he was telling the calf was, this is a schus for you, for an animal. My son once showed me that for an animal to be shechted and eaten, Kedusha is a tikkun, whatever that means, for the soul of this animal. It's a uplifting for the animal when it gets shechted for something davar shebdusha. This animal was going to be brought as a carbon, and I saw also that it's a schus and a tikkun for the animal that a ben Torah, somebody that keeps Torah and mitzvos, eats this animal, and because he ate this animal, he's able to keep the Torah and mitzvos because he's full. It's a tikkun for the animal. So Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi really was telling the animal, this is what you were created for, not in a callous way, not in a feeling for that calf. He actually was telling the calf, this is chus for you, go. Yet he was punished for 13 years, that he couldn't learn Torah the way he wanted to, and he suffered terrible suffering. Why? Because he still should have felt Rachmanis on an animal, even though it was for the animal's benefit. He as a human should have understood that this animal was scared and there was no emotion, and therefore the Gemara tells us he was punished. So you see how a person has to be so sensitive, whether it's a principal, whether it's a Rebbe, whether it's a parent, that if you have to discipline, feel bad that you have to discipline. Don't say, he deserves it, he caused trouble in class, he's going to learn a lesson. Feel bad that he deserves the discipline. But feel bad that you have to be the one to give it to him, and it's not going to be, a good feeling for this person. So that's one thing I wanted to mention in the pshat of Dinah being taken captive, and why was Yaakov punished? That Dinah herself was taken forcefully. Now the shaila is also by Dinah, why was she actually punished? Because Yaakov committed a sin like that. So the pasuk teaches us also that Dinah, it says Vateitze Dinah, that Dinah went out to Bas Leah, Sheyodel Yaakov Leroy Bivnei Saretz, to check out the land. Okay, simple, nature. I'm going out to check out the land. No, Chazal tell us that she went and she would walk a certain way, knowing that she was a very pretty woman, and she did get a certain enjoyment when other people would stare at her, which is terrible. I have to know where that came from. But it says that Leah got punished also because she went out to Yaakov Avinu the day that she gave the roses, the dudayim, whatever they are, the flowers, those roses that she gave to, that she gave to Rachel instead. It says she went out. The lashon over there in the pasuk is Vateitzei Leah. Leah went out, which was a little unsneistic. She should have stayed in her tent. She didn't have to run out of her tent to run to Yaakov. It was a certain unsneishness on the level of our imos, and therefore she was punished. Vateitzei Dina, that Dina went out. So there was a midah keneged midah there also. But then again, why is Dina punished for that? The answer is because she also had a problem. She went out to check the land. A woman's, I won't say chas v'shalom job, but a woman's beauty is her tznius, is her staying at home. K'vayda bas melech pnima, that she's humble, she's tzniistic. Like Hine Sarah ba'oil, Sarah was in the tent. The malachim were telling Avrohom Avinu, look at your wife Sarah, she's a tznuah. She doesn't come out to us. We're guests. She stays in the tent on her level. She knew she was going to serve, but she had a certain tznius. I'm not going out. I'm not going out. Even in her own tent, she didn't go out. To the malachim. The malachim was showing Avrohom Avinu, wow, what a tzniistic woman you married. Therefore, the fact that Dina went out to see Bivnai Haaretz doesn't say to see the men of the town, of the city of Shechem. She went out to see Bivnai Haaretz, the daughters, right? Bivnai Haaretz, the daughters. But even though she went out to see the daughters, there was a certain lack of tznius, how she walked around when people would stare at her. She felt a certain goodness, and for that she was taken forcefully, and that's why she was punished for that. But I want to end actually with an unbelievable vort on two actually things I want to mention. I want to mention with the fight that Yaakov had with the Malach. It says here that Yaakov went back. After he was about to, the next day he was going to meet Eisav, he realized he'd left pachim ketanim. Now pachim ketanim are small jars, okay? Now I don't think in those days you were able to return bottles for 5 cents deposits, you know? So then maybe it would make sense. No, it wouldn't actually. But why did Yaakov Avinu take a gamble of leaving the flock? He's not supposed to go out alone. It's dangerous. It says that a Talmid Chacham should not go lichidi balayla. He can't go at night alone. Yet Yaakov Avinu felt that for a few jars, he's going to go out and get it. So I saw different pshatim on it, and one of them is that Yaakov wanted to show that he acquired these items without gezel. He acquired it without stealing, and it meant a certain value to him. Okay, that's one shot I saw. That the value that he would constantly see through these jars, that he used to get everything he got, was through honesty, would be a lesson in chinuch for him. But I saw another pshat that Yaakov felt that everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him was valuable. Everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him was valuable. And if Hashem put in his possession empty jars, some people say there was oil in it, and we learned Hanukkah story from it. I hear, we're not going to go there, but basically he went back to get jars that were not as important as going to get it. But for him, because Hashem gave it to him, it meant it was important. And I want to tell you from that, when I learned that as a little boy, I would never want to pick up a penny or a nickel before that. A little boy, 11, 12, 13 years old. I never wanted to pick up a penny because I didn't want people to say, oh, cheap Jews picking up a penny. Besides, I don't want the penny when I'm going to have extra change in my pocket. How many people just give away nickels and pennies, even to tzedakah? Nabuch, even to tzedakah. They'll give it away just because they can't have the extra change in their pocket, right? So I would wait. I would always wait to make sure no one's looking, and I'd pick up the penny. Not because I wanted it. Believe me, I didn't want it. But I wanted to show myself, because of this, the pachim tanim, that if Hashem put a penny, which is not valuable, in front of you, but it's worth something, what right do I have to walk by it and not pick it up? Obviously Hashem wanted me to see it. Obviously Hashem wanted me to pick it up. What right? Because I don't want to bend down, and I would make sure obviously that nobody saw me, because they're not going to get it while I'm doing it. If I knew they would get it, then I would pick it up in front of them. But they wouldn't get it. I felt maybe the Chalash Hashem would be greater. Oh, he's picking up a penny, Nebuchadnezzar. But I wanted to mention that I used to pick up all these pennies and put them in a certain jar, because I felt that Hashem gave it in my direction, it's meant for me to pick it up. And I put them together, and almost every single year, I don't remember what time of the year, but After they accumulated a certain amount, I would either have $5, $10. It wasn't just a penny. It was 5 cents, a dime on the floor, a quarter in the machine. I would say, if it's coming my way, it's meant to be by me for a reason. And I would put it together, and twice a year, I would give it to tzedakah. Sometimes it was even $30, $40, believe it or not. Pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. So very, very important, the power of, that if Hashem sends something your way, what right do you have to say it's not worth anything? That's one thing I wanted to mention. Anyway, what happens is, we're going to end with this, that Vayomer Elav, he's fighting, he goes back for the Pachim Tanim, and because he was left alone, and a Talmid Chacham is not supposed to be alone, the Yetzer Hara is able to attack him. Now I will tell you that we learn from here a very valuable thing also. Klal Yisrael needs Achdus. When Klal Yisrael remains alone, that's when the trouble starts. When Klal Yisrael separates from each other, when Yaakov, Vayavasir, is left alone, when Klal Yisrael separate, that's when the Sitra Achar is able to come and get Klal Yisrael. So therefore, we obviously, and especially in our times, the Achdus is very important. Because when we come together as a unit, we're able to fight the Sitra Achar. That's one thing I wanted to mention on this episode. What happens? This Malach comes and he fights with him. So a very interesting conversation happens here. Yaakov sees the Malach, and the Malach says, they start fighting, and we all learn that Yaakov was able to win against the Malach. But what happens is, Vayomer Elav Ma Shemcha. The Malach asks Yaakov, what's your name? Vayomer Yaakov. He says, my name is Yaakov. Vayomer Lo Yaakov, Ye'erma Oich Shemcha Im Yisrael. Your name will not be that, your name will be Yisrael, because you fought against the Malach. No problem. Then for some reason Yaakov asks, Vayishlach Yaakov Vayomer Hagidni Na Shemecha. Ask me, tell me your name. Now this is not kindergarten here, where what's your name? Hi, what's your name? No, none of your beeswax what my name is. You know, the bullies used to say, what do you need to know my name for? What's going on there? Yaakov, he asks him what his name is. Yaakov asks him what his name is. But the answer of the Malach is very, very strange. He says to him, to Yaakov, Vayoma, and he says to him, Lama zet tishal lishmi, why are you asking my name? Vayivarach Hashem, and he blesses him there. What are you asking my name for? You asked me my name. I told it to you. So I'm asking your name. Common sense. Now, what was Yaakov asking the name for? He wanted to know what evil is attacking him. This wasn't just a physical fight. This was spiritual. I believe, but I understand from my learning that even the Gid HaNasha that was hit, it wasn't a physical hit. Because of a battle that they had spiritually, he was able to do something physical to Yaakov. Because the physical is connected with the spiritual. Therefore, because of a battle, of a spiritual deficiency that he was able to overcome a little bit, Yaakov's physical hip was damaged. Even though the Medrash says that later on the next day, that next morning, it was healed. People think he limped his whole life. I'm sure there's Mefarshim that say that, but I saw Mefarshim that he was healed right after the day began. Because this happened in twilight, or between where it wasn't noticeable, what's going on, which is also a lesson. That when it comes to the Satan, you know when he gets us? When we're not clear as night, even if it's night. But you know it's night, that's also a milah. When you know something is bad, that's also a milah. And when you know something is good, of course that's a milah. It's when you're not sure. That's why there was a little bit of a lo sashaka where it's not clear. That's when the Satan is able to get somebody. When somebody's emunah is not clear, that's when he's capable of being attacked and capable of succumbing to the Yetzer Hara. Now what does he answer? Why do you ask me my name? What type of answer is that? What type of answer? What are you asking me my name? So the Bali and Musar, a few of them that I saw, actually they answered the same answer. That he was answering what his name was. And what was his name? Lama Tishal. Why do you ask? Lishmi is my name. That's my name. What does that mean? Amalek and Eisav, what type of ideology were they? Don't ask questions. Do whatever you want. You don't need to know rules. You don't need to know regulations. You're on your own. You can do whatever you want. Lama Tishal. Why do you ask? That's Shemi. Lishmi is my name. That's not my vart. I've seen it in many places. They say it over. That he did answer. Lama Tishal is Shemi. Amalek. Amalek is Lama Tishal. Don't ask questions. Give it into your heart's desires. Don't need to know the right and wrong. Don't learn Torah. Don't ask your rabbis. Do whatever you want. So he did answer him by telling him, Lama Tisha Lishmi, that is my name. And the last thing I want to end with is with Rachel Imenu. She was Nifteres in this week's Parsha, and she died during childbirth. And while she was dying, or while their child came out, she called her son Ben Oni, son of my affliction, son of my mourning, son of my suffering. Yet Yaakov Avinu right away switched it to Benjamin, son of my right hand, Benjamini, son of my right hand. What's going on here? First of all, why was Rachel Imenu pessimistic by calling it Ben Oni? Why would she have to do that for this child? Why should this child walk around with a negative connotation that this is the son of Rachel's suffering and mourning, that she died? And why did Yaakov switch it if that's what Rachel called it? I saw an unbelievable word on this. Rachel was worried that now that she won't be alive, who is going to be mechanech the child when he's young? A mother's, not obligation, but a mother's Torah. Shema b'ni musar avicha v'al titash Torah simecha. A mother's upbringing when a child is young is the most powerful influence on a child, because you're building the foundation of this child. Therefore, what happened? She was worried that being that the mother won't be in the picture, who's going to take care? Yaakov Avinu is busy with his Torah, and Yaakov Avinu is busy building the other Shvatim, the older ones like Yosef he has to learn with. So she called it Ben Oni, because she was terrified that this child will not be brought up with the chinuch that a mother instills in a child when they're young. The moda'ani, the wearing of the tzitzis, the taking to the cheder in the morning, the being home when the husband's at work, and being mechanech that child when he's young. She was worried that she won't be there for him. Therefore, Yaakov switched the name and says, no, Rachel, don't worry, Benjamini, I will be there. I will be there. I will be he will be the son of strength, and he won't be the son of mourning, because I will take the role of the mother and the father. I won't just let him go. I won't just be an absentee father. I'm going to be there from the beginning through his growth, which you would normally have been. Therefore, he let Rachel die in peace, by changing the name to Benjamini. No, he is a son of strength, because I will give my strength, Yaakov's strength of Torah and Ruchnias, will be in that child. And that's why he was protected all the years by Yaakov Avinu. He didn't want to send Binyamin at the end. He didn't want it because he knew that he made that promise to Rachel Imenu that I have to protect this child. And this child is going to be a child protected without a mother, and I have to play that role. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful Shabbos. And I want to tell you, there's so much more Divrei Torah. I just told you a drop in a bucket, but it was very special stuff.